Hello friends. Now let us take up the concept number 5.5. This is infinite loop. This is also known as indefinite loop. When we are creating loops in our program, basically we create two types of loop. In the first type of loop, we know how many iterations are required to be made by the loop beforehand. How many iterations are to be made by the loop beforehand. For example, if a class consists of 60 students, their class teacher had to prepare their marks reports. Then how she writes the test expression in the loop? C is the counter, C is less than or equal to 60. That means the maximum number of iterations are 60. For every student, one iteration is required for reading the marks, processing them, processing the marks and printing the report. For every student, one iteration is enough. There are 60 students and 60 iterations are required. Beforehand, we know. Then test expression of the loop can be designed in this fashion. In some other cases, we do not know how many iterations are required. The best example for this is if you learn by heart a poem, then beforehand you do not know how many iterations, how many recitals you have to make. Then what to do? When you know, once you recite the poem, at one point of time you get confidence that you memorize the poem. Then you stop your recitals. Then you may count how many recitals already have made. Then such cases. For that, what is the best programming example is, suppose you want to deposit 1 lakh rupees in the bank. Suppose this is for 5 years, then it's very simple. C is less than or equal to 5. The number of years are 5, C is less than or equal to number of 5. And other variant in this is, you may ask the bank manager to deposit the money such a period until it doubles. That means the money, the principal amount should be doubled. That means 1 lakh is the principal amount and you should fetch an interest of another 1 lakh, then amount will become 2 lakh. Principal is 1 lakh and interest fetch is 1 lakh and amount will become 2 lakhs. In such case, how can you know how many iterations are required like this and all that? Then in such case, what should you do? You have to create an infinite loop, and once the amount becomes, you have to create an infinite loop subject to the condition that whenever the amount becomes 2 lakh, loop is stopped. Loop should be terminated. In such a way you have to define. That means explicitly you define infinite loop subject to a condition whenever task is performed, loop is to be terminated. So mathematically, how we do this? Now this is the principal amount. This is 1 lakh rupees. Every month what we do? We calculate interest. And we add to the principal plus interest comes amount. At the end of the month, every month you arrive at the amount. This amount will be principal for the next following month. Suppose, just for example, 1 lakh, originally 1 lakh is your principal amount. At the end of the month, it fetches 1000. And suppose January 1st we take. January 1st you deposited 1 lakh in the bank. By 31st January you fetch 1000 rupees as interest. For February 1st, what is the principal amount? 1 lakh 1000 is the principal amount. On that, interest is calculated for the month, so for the February month. In that way, it is continued. At one point of time, what happens? Amount becomes 2 lakh. That means task is achieved. Then what happens? loop should be terminated. Then we can know, if you count the number of iterations, how many months are required to make the principal double. Understand? This is the case. So mainly we create test expressions. We define test expressions in two ways. We know beforehand how many iterations are required. In some other cases, voluntarily we create infinite loops subject to a condition. Once task is achieved, loop should be terminated. How to create that little later we discuss through some programs. Now some other cases are there. You voluntarily explicitly want to create a loop, you should run number of beforehand you know how many iterations are to be made, and that many runs you make out. Test expression you define in such a fashion. Even though infinite loop may be created because of some internal reasons, you must know that. If you do not know this, these may be 0.001% cases, but if you do not know this fact, one day you are handicapped. Nobody, you may not get explanation for this so easily. That's why such type of cases also I am presenting here to enlighten you on these points. Now you see, I want to print the numbers from 1 to 127. I want to print natural numbers 1 to 127 sequentially. For that purpose, why should we take a bigger type? So I have taken byte type. Byte is a smallest integer type, and it is signed one. So what is range? Minus 128, minus 127, like this, 0, 1, 2, like this, 127. This is the range. Always remember, all Java types are signed types, not no scope of unsigned. Unsigned is there in C, C++. So this is the range of byte type in Java. Now I have written test expression like this: C is less than or equal to 127. Prima facie, are you finding any fault in that? No fault. The perfect condition. Now SOP C I have written, and obviously you should print 1, 2, 3, 127. 127 means plus 127. Then what is happening now? After printing 127, what happens? C++. Then what happens? 127 already C's value becomes 128. 128. Actually, here is a boundary line. It cannot go beyond. Control cannot go beyond. That's why you cannot expect that 128 is printed. Loop should be terminated, but in this case it is different. Here byte is signed type. That means for 128 both plus and minus are equally applicable. There is no scope of application of plus here because there is a boundary line. Then automatically minus is applied. Then it is coming this side. Then minus 127 is equally valid for C. It becomes minus 127. Then you substitute it here. Minus 128 is less than or equal to 127. This is true. Then this is printed, this is printed, this is printed. Again the same story is repeated. This is called, technically this is called wrapping. Then obviously infinite loop is created. These are very few cases, but you must notice it. You understand, in such cases you should not be handicapped. Nobody will be there for your help. That's why you work out every program and make every element, every concept register in your brain. So in this case, what to do? Then you have to press two keys, Control and C. The Control and C keys together, if you press, infinite loop is automatically stopped. That you must know that. So In this case, you know, some other cases you may design your test expression inadvertently or negligently or ignorantly. In such case also, loop initially true and forever it remains true. That's why infinite loops are created. Don't terrify. Generally, beginner programs are terrified by simply by seeing an infinite loop, Then simply press Ctrl C. It is automatically